I think that will be fine. This Susan, would that be fine?
Yes, sir. That would be
Okay, so I will try to share my screen now so we can, see the materials. Then we'll start with the flow.
all right, sir.
Okay. Am I permitted to share?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, sir.
Yes, ma. Good
Okay.
morning. Can I see your screen? Very well, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Don't answer. Okay. So we all know the course is ENS 813, Resources and Industries, and it's by myself and Dr. Shebu, which he has already begun. I was in the class where he introduced the course and also what lessons will be taught by myself and him. And I believed he was able to do justice to the definition of resources and that of industries, especially on the theories that the theories and models under the industry laws and how it comes to how you locate your industry or the demand and supply with industry location and how it affects your productivity and all that. So I will be focusing on African resources, and I'll be looking at environmental sustainability alongside um, what we'll be discussing. So I've outlisted some certain flow, and the flow deals with us having a kind of orientation on African resources and production, which I know he has already identified in his discussion, but we'll be talking about type of resources and how, based on the stages or types of resources, based on their origin, on how it flows that way. Then we will now be moving to environmental sustainability, like the view through the environmental sustainability when it comes to resources and industry. We'll be looking at sustainable production system in Africa. How do we sustain our production in Africa, and what kind of production do we even practice in Africa? Then there's already a particular classification that was done, and we'll actually be trying to, expatiate or talk about the African mineral and energy resource classification and management system. I think it's the classification type on how African can actually sustain its production in terms of resources and also how they can grow their industries. It's just mostly like protecting what we already have as a country, as a continent, and how Africa can actually scale up. And he also talks about the intercontinental free trade, zone where we can interchange in terms of how we trade on our resources. Then we'll be in that particular um, session of this particular material, we'll be looking at Pan-African resources and reserve reporting code. Then the green material, resources in Africa. As we all know, this particular course is leveraging on environmental sustainability. We are not just identifying the resources we have, we're also looking at industries and resources based on the environmental sustainability pattern. And how can you have sustainability? We definitely want to encourage that of renewable or recycling materials and try to see how we can have more adaptation and conservation of our environment. in line with the best practices around the world, because we all understand that the world is actually experiencing a lot of climate change, ozone layer depletion, just to mention a few. The biosphere has really been affected over time because of human activities. These human activities are actually caused through the process of us trying to harness our resources. As we all know, that a resource is any material, energy, or service that is useful to humans and can be technologically, harnessed. It could be assessed economically feasible and culturally acceptable. So what can be acceptable can actually be detrimental to our own existence. And I think that's why environmental sustainability now becomes a thing that becomes a new paradigm when it comes to discipline and professionalism, because the world has seen that we've caused more havoc than good, or we've done a lot of good, but at the same time, the side effects, because there's always this cause and effects analysis that is meant to be done after series of, extraction or other services that applies to resources or building our industries. Those actually will be discussed, and we'll be looking at industrial revolution and environmental transformation in Africa. What is our industrial revolution? And then do we even have any form of environmental transformation that is happening within the continent of Africa? We'll also be looking at key industrial sector driven environmental change in Africa. That will be like the third topic that we'll be expatiating upon. Then we'll now go to historical role of manufacturing in the world economy. So how the dimension shift or the paradigm shift of different manufacturing sense or revolution that's happening in the world from the beginning of, just normal extraction and, processing to the one that deals with large plants and all that, the one that deals with technology. And now we're even moving to AI. We'll be touching on that. From the world perspective, the world economy, we'll look at the countries that also practice, which will definitely identify one or two, give instances if time permits for that. Then we'll be looking at manufacturing and the world economic in the 21st century, or in this material. So we're going to share the material so we can understand it. Then maybe my next class on that's tomorrow. When I'm discussing, everybody understand what I'm discussing, then we can actually have some kind of, interactive class, because I love an interactive class. I don't just want it to be like I know something, and because I know most of us are already practitioners in our own field, and the application of environmental sustainability is part of what we are trying to apply as well. So even if I'm the lecturer, I believe that most of us have our own school of thoughts, and also the most important thing is for us to educate ourselves, and which I believe that's the new trend of lecturing nowadays. Then we have the one of Africa and manufacturing in the world economy. So what is the contribution of Africa to manufacturing? What is the percentage? What is our share total in terms of the world economy, in terms of our production, productivity? How do we fit in? What is Africa really doing? What is the world doing? What is Europe? What is America? What is South America, Asia? What is their contribution compared to what Africa is contributing? They will be looking at global value chain and environmental responsibility. What is meant to be our responsibility, or what should be our own, add-on to making sure that we conserve the environment, or we retain the relief order of the environment. Because in as much that civilization is bettered, we expect that civilization comes with a lot of stress to the biosphere. And in turn, we try to extract out of extraction, we seek for, the removal of what we call resource. And in doing that, we want to build industries. And when we build industries, there's always a return leg after those things are done. Industry usually gives you a better livelihood, a better opportunity in terms of quality of life. But at the end of the day, what does it say, or what does it do to the habitable world that we live in? And we need to balance the flow between what we need as human beings and what the world, that's the earth, the biosphere, or the lithosphere as it seems. How do we balance? How do we balance it? Like we all knew that the early 80s, the early 90s, what we're experiencing now is different from what we experienced then. And some of us, I know some of us are as old as even in the 70s. We understood the quality of air we breathe, the vegetal cover we had, the land use, utility, the suitability, how you can just, live even longer as a human being. Now, what is our life expectancy rate? All these are being influenced by the way we extract our resources. Then we'll also be looking at industrial growth versus environmental limits. You want to grow your industries, but what is the capacity of the environment? Can the environment actually, withstand the stress that comes with this particular initiation or innovation that we bring upon ourselves? Like I can remember the other time that Dr. Shebu was speaking about oil extraction and how Americans have come ahead with what they call cracking. And in that cracking, it actually gives the ability for any crude oil in a particular radius to converge in one spot, and the extraction can be done. But doing that means that you'll be creating a lot of cracks or a lot of fault line under the biosphere or the lithosphere. And what you now get is that you might see what they call the tremor, or even earthquake will happen. The plate tectonics could shift, and what you get is destruction. Even the cities that we built can actually be affected after some time. We can see some of those examples from even what we had in the early 2000s in Japan, even the one in, I think was sometime like 6 years ago in Turkey, where even one of the famous footballers from Ghana actually died. And those are actually actions from how we actually, use our space. So we'll be looking at environmental limits with industrial growth as well. Then finally, we'll be touching down on localization of manufacturing activities. How do we localize? How can Africa actually improve from being just a primary production sites to more like a processed and manufactured good, for us to increase the amount of contribution to the global trade index or indices? Because I know that merchandise in Africa, what we actually give is below 1.6 trillion and contributes for just about 3.3%, less than 4% of the total global trade compared to the other region of the world, and which is significantly very low. So let me start by, are we all following, please? I need for me not to feel like I'm just talking. I hope I'm clear on what I've said so far.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So yes, so I will just be touching on what has been said before by my counterparts. We know what a resource is, as he has explained. Resource can actually be viewed from different points or from the user's definition. Like resource usually implies for a layman is any material that or energy or services that is useful to humans and technology can be technologically assessed, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. So all these indices has to come in place, like what can be technologically assessed that you can use, even if it's a soft technology, it mustn't be a complex one or advanced technology. Economically viable is that there must be economic, will I say, advantage that comes with it, because anything could be a resource, but when there's no value that is added to it, then it becomes just ordinary substance or material. Like we understand that as time goes on, the human need actually drifts from certain resource to other, and those other resource it becomes unknown resource because it doesn't have use, because the usability is basically what makes it a resource. And culturally acceptable, like now, gold is culturally acceptable since the time for the early civilization, and it continues to be accessible. Maybe if the world order actually changed the use of gold and people don't use it for like the videos that they are doing now by the Gen Zs and then the musicians and all that, maybe the value now drop, the culture actually now shift to something else. So basically, that's what we understand like what a resource could be. Then how can you classify a substance as a resource? That's basically what I've been discussing. Something is not automatically a resource.
Room, or you need
Please
to
speak in
Cameroon.
please.
Then you reach to one place called Jatoka. There you have the Nigeria and Cameroon border.
Please, can you mute your mic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Adamu Tena, mute your mic.
Please mute your mic. Don't disturb the rest of the class. Thank you. It becomes one when human recognizes its usefulness. Definitely, for example, crude oil was not a resource before technology made it usable. Like if you understand, before maybe during the domesticated years where humans were still like according to some revolution theories, when humans were still domesticating and cultivating, I don't think we have the use for why we will tame the soil and go deep into the crust and say we want to extract crude oil, because at that time I don't think we had any usability for it. I think the usability for coal was first before even the usability for crude oil. I stand to be corrected, but I believe that coal was actually used to drive most industries at the early times before crude oil now became more advanced technologically, acceptable means of generating energy. Then we have different type of resources. So we have resources based on the origin. The resources could come from nature, which is what is like the biosphere that we discussed. That's the world, the earth that we live in. So it can actually be directly obtained from nature. Such resources such as land, water, forests, mineral. We know the land, as in the surface is the land, and then you can actually now begin to say, okay, you want to extract the mineral that comes under the land or that you can actually bring out from the land, where the mineral classification comes in. Then we have wildlife, sunlight, all a natural phenomenon. Even wind is also a natural phenomenon. Then we have the human resource. This one deals with our own knowledge, our own capacity, our own human skills, our own human skills, just to measure a few. So we have resource type based on their renewability. I'm sure that Dr. Shaibu was able to touch on this very well, but I'm just trying to do a refresher course for us. So we actually build upon it because the symposium that happened yesterday. I knew it was about procurement, so we are back to environmental sustainability. So just for us to refresh our memory. So renewability resource, that's resources that can regenerate naturally if properly managed. Example is forest, if properly managed, because now what we are having is deforestation. And most times, sometimes the renewability resource, like for forests, it takes time for a plant to grow to a shrubs, for it to grow to a tree, because a tree basically takes a longer time for you to actually have those stem that actually can actually tap and you become like, the other form of wood that we use. So sometimes we overcut this our forest, and at the end of the day, we expose the land, and the renewability looks almost like it's not going to happen, and that's why we're having the form of climate change we're having now. But that said, with careful thoughts and deliberate action, forests can actually be regenerated in no distant time, sometimes within 5 to 10 years, depending on the focus or the impact that we want it to have. Then we have water. Water is also a renewable resource. We know the rainfall is also a form of actually resurfacing or restocking what we have as water body. Then we have the solar energy. That's the one that we get directly from the sun. Every day we get the same resource coming into the earth. Then we have wind. Then the non-renewable resource, as we can see, is identified as resources that take millions of years to form or can be exhausted. Like, as we all know, most of the mineral resources that we have on Earth is as a result of geological, reaction. Most times it comes as, a volcanical eruption or plate tectonic movement, and you see like a new landform is being bettered. And we can see it's not this particular revolution or this form of activities happened in the time past, like millions or billions of years ago, according to science. And then most of those resources are deposit of the multi-magma that has been solidified on the earth crust or within the formation of the second layer of the earth and the first layer. So most times we try to mine that, and that's where we get our petroleum products, that's the crude oil, that we try to, turn to different form of liquid resource. We have the coal, natural gas, just to mention a few. Then we have another type of resources based on the stages of development. The stages of development depends on the potential resource as one, which is going to exit, but not currently used. Is a potential, is not being used. It's something that we are looking forward to. Like now, we understand that we can tap into solar energy as a resource, but in most African countries, we've not had, maybe, like I say there's technology, maybe we don't have the economical capacity to actually harness that form of potential resource, but it's available all year, all round, based on even our location, based on space. Then we have the actual developed resource. This actual developed resource is a resource that is already, seen, that is already developed, can be used if necessary. Those resources are usually surveyed, quantified, and currently in use. So actual is what we are actually using, is what is developed, like what we have in the Niger Delta, what we have in most of our uh, riverine states, where we have our crude and we have Total, Ajib, Mobile coming to, harness or try to develop it and make sure that we continue to produce year every day and year in, year out. Then we have our stock resources. These stock resources exist but cannot be used due to lack of technology. like hydrogen energy in water. We understand that there's a lot of that, there's potentiality. It's stock, in short, is already readily available, but we don't have the technology to do that. Another stock resources is what America is trying to do with the Venezuela people. That we understand that the Venezuela, as a country, have like a lot of stock resource. But what has always been the excuse of most of these energy companies that is not that the amount spent on to make it economically viable supersede the technology that they have to put on that particular region. So that makes it not, economically right for you to call it a usable resource. But it's available. The survey has been done. They have like the most reserve in the world. But how do you extract this resource? So it's stuck maybe until when technology improves and when there's a better technology, maybe when that of the cracking that Shaibu said is widely unacceptable, then they can now say, okay, they want to use it to extract some of that. But I think is a continuous engagement with the American government because they've identified them to be the potential place where they can derive what they need based on their lead or their weak leadership or what they perceive to be weak leadership. And, they went in there to see how they can actually, harness some of those resources for their own particular use. And so we have the reserve resource. So the reserved resources can be used with current technology, but countries, government actually choose to say, okay, come, I think because we are using this specific, let's keep some for the future generation. We cannot, exhaust what we have, but we can actually stock for the future generation. So that is based on stages of development. So now we're moving to the holistic view of African resource and production. So as we said, Africa starts, in short, is a very big case study because we're saying environmental sustainability. Has Africa really even benefited from the industrial revolution that's happened? And now the world has started feeling the impact of the industrial revolution that happened. But now we still need to plan with the rest of the world on how to conserve the world itself. And we can see even in most regions of West Africa, or even the Sahara areas, that's Northern Africa, we can see the evidence of climate change. Like we can see visibility of drought, you see desertification, you see deforestation, and that's why you see more people coming into Nigeria because we are close to where there's a bit of water body that can help us, vegetate our areas. But at the same time, it's causing stress on the habitat, that's the Nigerian people. And this as the effect of maybe the way resources are being used globally and how Africa has not really tapped into it. But at the same time, we have to make adjustments along with the world. So we have African resources and production that is refers to the availability of natural and human resource. We have a lot of population in Africa. I think, well, Africa can boast for 1/3 of the world population, if I'm not mistaken. And the processes through which these resources are transformed into goods and services. Despite abundant resources that we have in Africa, Africa production systems largely based on primary base production and is limited by economic development. We don't put value to our resources. Most of our resources are being harnessed raw and being shipped abroad. And African leaders have not really done anything with that. The only part of Africa that looks like it's getting it right is maybe North Africa and maybe specifically South Africa, based on their mining industry capacities. So we have the section 2 that speaks to environmental sustainability. We understand that even when we've identified all these resources, there must be ways and means for we to actually plan for the environment to be able to sustain itself, not because we want to extract, we forget the impact it has on the environment. So in Africa, African resources and production must be managed in a way that promotes economic development while conserving an ecosystem. We know what an ecosystem is, and ensuring long-term environmental integrity. Sustainable production is essential for achieving resilience, climate adaptation, and inclusive growth in Africa. So this is self-explanatory. In as much that we want to extract or we want to produce, we must conserve our ecosystem. That's the biosphere as it stands, and look for a long-term environmental integrity. How does the environment retain its richness? How does it retain its capacity to have us live a quality life? Because sometimes we forget, because of economic gain, we try to, extract without looking at the environmental impact assessment of it. Most times we want to build industries without looking at EIA, the environmental impact assessment of what we are trying to do. And in return, there's, as we said, a cause and effect analysis is done. We'll blame every other person, will blame God without blaming ourselves. But because of the technological improvements, most of these things, we can actually see how we can, and equate both usability.
Thank you.
Right. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, it's as if network throughout our lecturer. I guess he will soon find his way back to the class. Network will direct him back to class very soon. Good morning once again. When you are in a lecture, be looking at your screen too now. The lecturer is not in class. Network threw him out. If you are looking at your screen, you will know that You will see he's not in class, and no need for the plenty comment in the chat box. He is no longer, the lecturer is no longer here with us. But I'm looking for him now.
Hello. Sorry, I'm
Okay.
back. My network just kicked me out.
Welcome, sir.
So class rep, you have been in class. I've been asking after you.
Yes, sir. I'm in power now, sir.
Yeah, in power. They didn't remove you like the IG yesterday.
Yeah, there was there were attempts, sir.
Okay, so let me continue to share. I hope I'm communicating though.
Yes, sir, you are.
You
Very
are.
powerful communication, sir.
Thank you. Let me
Yes.
continue to share so we'll continue, then we can have when we contribute and suggest that. Okay. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen, sir.
Okay, so let me continue. So, environmental sustainability, as I have been saying, is that from the concept of environmental sustainability, we have to look at the concept of resources and production. And in the viewpoint of environmental sustainability is that when you see something as a resource, maybe being a natural asset, that resource must be used in a way that it meets the present need without compromising the ability for future generations to meet theirs. So we can't be selfish from the environmental sustainability perspective of the use of resources. Then in terms of production, production therefore refers to the environmental responsibility processes of transforming resources into goods and services while minimizing ecological damage. So production is meant to be in a way that is environmentally friendly. So the friendliness of our innovations, of our creativity, allows us to see how we protect our environment to be able to meet our own present need and that of the future generation. So we can't be selfish because we want to have good quality of life. We'll forget or we actually destroy the ones of the future future generation. So that's basically the perspective of the environmental sustainability when it comes to resources. Where we harness these resources, we have these natural assets, and we're able to, processes, develop it to meet our own need, and also we protect that of the future generation. So we have what we call sustainable production. So the sustainable production deals with the balance is the balances between or within the economic growth, how you improve yourself economically, the environmental protection, and the social well-being. So now, for you to have quality of life, you have to see how you balance your economic growth. That's the purchasing power of your people, the production, that's the how empower in terms of the technology that you bring upon or the resources that you've harnessed. How does it impact your people economically? Then you look at the environment. Does it have any impact on the environment? If it doesn't, or you minimize it or you mitigate the impact, it can also mean that it will improve your social well-being. That means that what you intend to gain from having that production is for you to have a quality of life or social well-being that actually pays at the long run. That when your time comes, you say, yes, I've enjoyed this earth, that kind of thing. So we have African resources from the sustainability perspective. From natural resources, we have African natural resources are vital to development, but idly vulnerable to degradation. if poorly managed. So now, because of our level of technology, we need to be very careful. We know that we have natural resources in Africa, but now, in terms of development of those resources, how vulnerable are we to creating degradation or environmental imbalance? Because there's possibility for us to have that that inability to be able to operate efficiently in terms of managing the balance between environmental sustainability and economic, influence of it. So we have land and soil resources. So basic of land resources is agricultural and food security. So most times, like in Africa, Nigeria, for example, we understand that our strength in most of our middle belt states is agriculture. But is this agriculture, is it harnessed enough? Have we really developed the ability to use our natural resources? Because we can actually tame our soil, we can actually improve, we can do mixed cultivation, but what are we getting from it? Does it give us, can it impact us through food security? And now we understand that there are other attributions to why we don't have food security. So threats under that of natural resources, we have soil erosion, we have desertification, and we have overgrazing. Because of overgrazing can happen as a result of unmeasured domestication of our, of our stock. Our stock animals usually in developed climes like in Norway, in Canada, even in America, are usually ranched. They have areas designated for different, you know, dairy, and those dairy are meant to give them the potentiality of even cheese, milk, yeah, skin, eggs, meats, and all the, let's just mention a few, but we see our own animals moving from places to another place. And then, as I said, because of the climate change that's happening now, we can see that desertification have already come upon us, that most of our northern states have started as in witnessing low vegetal cover. And this has put pressure on the middle belt. And that's why you can now see that we have, clashes between farmers and herders. And if government can actually, improve on their policies or their EIA, they can try to arrest these situations. So on the sustainable approach, conservation, agriculture, agroforestry, and soil restoration. Like now, because we really want to maintain the world order in terms of our geology formation, geomorphological formation, the vegetal formation, we need to learn to use little space to get the maximum results. Like in most cities in South Africa, you see them practicing urban agriculture, where within their urban space, they have their gardens where they put in, different vegetables, maybe fruits and all that. You see them having mixed cultivation around their households and reducing the interference with the wild and allowing the wild to actually continue to be the ecosystem that is already identified to be. Then we have water resources. Under water resources, we have the rivers, we have the lakes, we have the wetland, we have groundwater. So under sustainability perspective, I can recall in one of those classes that I attended, that our groundwater, based on the abuse on how we actually dredge our boreholes, we tend to have so many boreholes within small radius. And before you know, there's a lot that goes on with that. That will not allow us to have the reservation that can help us serve for the future generation. So we need to, take cognizance of that and see how we can, reduce the usability unnecessarily. So the threats that water resources could have is pollution. In most industrial areas or hubs, we have so many chemical emissions. We have pollutants from. Can you hear me? Hello,
Yes, sir.
class.
We can hear you. We
Yes,
can
sir.
Yes,
hear
We
you,
sir.
can
sir.
hear you.
Okay. So we have pollution. That the pollution, especially for most of our lakes and rivers, are causes around industrial hubs, are usually polluted. And this pollution, if not well, treated, can actually lead to loss of lives and even, generational, mutations. And that's why we need to understand that in as much that we are mining resources, we need to learn how to reduce the emission that can lead to different form of pollution, especially when it comes to our water bodies. And we can actually identify that with even lakes. Lakes are even more worse because they are like, they are mostly like a stationary or static water body, and it doesn't have in and out. It's just like a depression that retains water. And what you have is that you have so many deposition within that space. So that basically is like, a body of ailments and all unnecessary, catastrophic that can happen from lake. But if well monitored, it's easy for you to know or how to treat that form of lake. And with technology as well, we can actually treat leaks. Then we have climate variability. We definitely, see how we can, because most times we tend not to understand the impact of our usability of our water resources to the impact that we have on our weather or meteorological variations. It actually affects maybe the way things are being done or how things are done. So on the sustainable approach, we need to integrate resources management. How can you manage all this water body? How can you, mitigate or reduce the use of one for the other one to be, optimally used for performance or for economic gain. Like for instance, that of Lake Chad in the northeast, we can see that Lake Chad is actually just reducing, is reducing, is reducing. That's because there's no distribution. The river that connects to Lake Chad, most of them are being blocked by maybe water icing or the weeds and all that. So the waters are not really getting to Lake Chad. And now we see during rainfall, the Dado Dam will be released, but what we need to do is to rechannel most of those water that is meant to be released from the Dado Dam and see how we can collect it to Lake Chad, where it can be a reserve for the northeastern part of the country, where they can get livelihood from even the fishes or the resources that comes from the water, and they can use it for irrigation. So all these things are meant to be, and I think part of the integration is also the basin initiative that is happening. I think even in Benue State we have a basin, as in, is it Benue State River Basin? Please, anybody can actually help me with that. I think there's a particular commission that actually deals with reserve water basin around that location. Then we have our forest resources. So forest resources, we all know the impact of deforestation. We all know why the earth is really warmer now. We now know why we have more cancerous diseases in the world now. These are as a result of insignificant, attention that we've, yes, lower Benue River Basin Thank you. Development Authority. Yes, I remember. So basically, that's particular integrated water scheme was meant to help us to harness potentials within the river basin. I think we have that of the Niger Basin too. So as in for us to be able to harness, like now, what says that we cannot use our waterways to have more of our shipment goods from abroad to be brought inward into the inland waterways? I think there was a time during the Yaradua administration, part of his 7-point agenda was to open the river, the inland waterways. And he did it to a particular point in time. And because government, I don't know, government is meant to be continual. I think that particular project was abandoned one way or the other. If that particular project was done to the highest potential, we won't have been having the flooding that we're having in part of Kwara, Niger, even Benue, Adamawa, all those flooding, because we'll have more deeper beds, we'll have expanded banks, and we'll have more retainments of water. And those water can actually also be used for other domestic services. We can use it for irrigation all year farming. And that time, I think during Obasanjo regime, we had the Fandama scheme that was meant to help us use the water integration. I remember Goroyo Dam at that time, the even this lower Benue Basin. I know there was some around even the KB states, Arugungu, all those places. There were Fandama setups there that give us all year round agricultural cultivation that would have increased our food security at that point in time. But what do? There's no continuity. I don't know, new government, new ideas, forgetting that we can build upon what we already have. And basically, that's what environmental sustainability is about. How do you sustain your initiation, your initiatives? How do you sustain your innovations compared to for you not just opposing the impact or the influence it will have on your future generation? You can't be selfish because of what you want to gain now, and you forget that there are people that will come after when we've departed this earth. Highest we have, especially in this life expectancy, highest is 100 years. Highest. In short, 100 years, you'll be begging, say, my people, please, I'll be meeting my maker very soon. Even you'll be prepared. So in 100 years, and you have a problem that you cause that will affect 1,000 years of generation. So we need to be very careful. And that's why environmental sustainability in terms of our resources and our industry is a very vital cause that can help us even advocate and sanitize even our governments, our industries, and we can use it for our own consultation as well. So threat of depletion of forest resources, we have deforestation. And part of deforestation is because there's no laws that actually help us to mitigate the illegal logging. Because if you log, you should have planned for you planting some other trees, and you wait for certain years for them to have germinated to a specific level, and you don't even cut down those trees until they have reached a certain amount of years. So if you are actually cutting trees, you have to replace with others. And that means that you are actually protecting, or you are reducing the amount of lack of forestry that we have, and we understand the impact on ourselves. They help us to convert carbon monoxide or carbon gases to oxygen, and the oxygen which we take in. The reason why we have polluted air is because our forests are not doing well. What they are meant to help us to convert. We don't have it, and they are the only, if not mistaken, the only organism that can help us convert carbon to oxygen. So we need to have this community forest management. We need to have reforestation. Like I believe most NGOs in the country try to, increase the awareness when it comes to when you have your home or you have a compound, please plant a tree. That basically helps your quality of life because you'll be having more fresh air being, being released around your household. And I think even it went along to communities, engagements, meeting people to say, okay, plant more trees. In short, if you travel to the north, you see the community forest management in terms of afforestation that has been done since Sardaunan's time. Like if you go to Kano, going to Castina, you see some of those afforestation that was done those years still existing within their spaces. In short, those are mostly most of the vegetal covers that you see around those neighborhoods. And since then, most of our government that we have now are concerned about when next are we getting into power without looking at the sustainability plan of our environment. Because now what we have is that even in Sokoto State, most of those trees that was planted at that time during the Amadu Bello's time or Sodana or Sokoto are either being chopped down because they want to make GRAs or they want to pave roads. And before, if you go to the city, it's very conducive because those trees actually act as shades, gives you good air. You'll be able to think better. You don't have your brain is not being wired wrongly because the sun is not hitting your head directly. But now what we have is that we have beautiful cities but low standard when it comes to quality of life because we actually underestimate the importance of our forest reserve. So we have the mineral and energy resources. We know that in Africa, we have like certain countries, like Nigeria, Angola, Morocco, that have crude reserve. You can see the oil, the gas, the liquefying gas, the solid minerals, very, very more rich within these spaces. But in Nigeria, I don't think we've done justice to our solid mineral, maybe because of the technology. But thank God that we've not really done so much because we don't have the skill set right now to extract. Maybe economically is not viable because we believe that the amount we use to extract is more than because we don't have the technology to identify specifically where certain minerals are. So that means that you'll be causing a lot of land degradation almost everywhere that you dig because you are dealing on probability. Like an example is somewhere in Zamfara that we saw children just using their bare hands to actually mine for minerals. And at the end of the day, it caused some kind of pandemic that leads to loss of lives at those areas. So we understand that even in Osun State, you see some kind of mining going on where areas that are meant to be habitable are just left uncatered for because there is no pattern to the mining style or the technique for you to mine those areas. You just go around, dig places, and before you know, you have rainfall. When rain falls, it turns to acidic water shed. And before it starts emitting a different form of biological, problems that can lead to health and that can impact even your livelihood. You want to improve your life, but at the same time, you're exposing yourself to pollutants that can affect your longevity. So the sustainable approach is environmental impact assessments. We have to learn how to do impact assessments. Is there any balance between you doing extraction and the people living around that area? Do you need to relocate them? I think the last time I went to River State and I met with some of the staff of the LLNG, I think they do a lot of this, the impact assessments environmental impact assessments. But at the same time, sometimes you do those impact assessments, you give your results, you even meet with the communities, but the communities themselves, because you have individuals that are corrupt, individuals that are selfish, they don't think about the communities. They'll say, okay, yeah, just give us some of the money. We'll see how we'll talk to our people. And at the end of the day, they move with the money. We have that in Bayelsa, we have that in River State. And that's why you see some of those militants, some of them are so rich, while some other people are still at the creeks. It's not that these impact assessments are not done by all these industrialists, but the thing is, they are doing even their social economic responsibility. But because of, sometimes you might plan that, yes, I want this thing to be sustainable. I want to make sure that the technology used is being measured. But you see people vandalizing those equipments, exposing the community to harmful gases. And before you know, the ecosystem is damaged, that place is not habitable, and you see mutation after some decades of years, people having some kind of hormonal imbalance. So we have the mine reclamation. That's what I was saying. Like after we finish mining, what do you do after you mine? How do you, have land use? How do you reclaim that land? How can you transform that land to actually be resourceful? So all those balance is basically the sustainable approach that we can put into it. Then we also have the cleaning extraction technologies. Like, was it during good luck that the Minister of Environment at that time, now she's now the Deputy President of United Nations, and the Amina, I've forgotten her second name, that she tried to, clean Bakassi. No, not Bakassi. What's the name of this community? Please, can someone help me? The name of the community in
Ogoni
Bayelsa.
land, sir.
Ogoni land, yes. It was a good campaign. In short, it's already gotten the attention. But the next government that came started, putting politics to it. And then the energy has already shifted. So the cleanup basically got to a particular, thank you, Ogoni cleanup, got to a particular percentage. And in most cases, especially in the South region, you have many abandoned projects. And this because of the communities will be engaged. They are part of the stakeholders. They engage them. They have a drawn out plan. But when it now comes to them doing their own parts, they compromised by turning their eye. They don't hold those companies or the contractors to be accountable because they have taken something. And this has been the problem of Africa. That's why our sustainable production system is flawed. The reason why the developed countries, okay, I'm seeing someone writing, it is ongoing though. There is a presidential task force. Okay, let me see. There's someone raised his hand. I'm coming, will answer you. Or specialized office in charge now. Okay, I pray. Okay, that's the class rep. I pray that we'll be able, we as advocate of environmental sustainability, us being professionals, can actually put more, more awareness to that ground, more accountability to that ground, more, engagement to that ground. So the people, the community can actually feel the impact of their environment being sustained. So I think Mohammed Habib, please go ahead and speak.
All right. Good morning, sir. Hello. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. My name is Muhammad Habib Umar, a senior environmental scientist with National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSDRA.
Okay, Nostra.
NOSDRA is the lead agency in terms of oil spill management in Nigeria. And regarding the Ogoni cleanup, it was actually during the government of late President Muhammadu Buhari that the project was initiated. Though it's ongoing, but rate at which it is going is very slow because our agency actually covers the aspect of Ogoni cleanup. Some sites have been remediated and certificate of closeout has already been issued, while some sites are still ongoing. Some of the bottlenecks the agency is facing is in terms of funding, because I think before the then Minister of Environment left, Amina Mohammed was the one in charge before she was elected to become Deputy UN Secretary. So she left. Her Minister of State actually took over in person of Ibrahim Usman Jibril. So before he left and became the Emir of Nasarawa, I think there was a plan that was supposed to be followed. I don't know how far they've gone with the funding, but initially from his interview with NTA before he left office, the sum of $200 million was actually deposited in Ogoni Trust Fund account that was meant to kickstart the cleanup. And the cleanup was supposed to span for 5 years, which each year the sum of 200 million to be funded into the Ogoni Trust Fund account. That is, international donor agency is going to be 180 million USD, while indigenous companies will contribute the 20 million USD on a yearly basis. But right now, the funding issue has been the major setback for the Ogoni cleanup. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, well, I think for projects like that, I think there should be a sale fund, a fund that is already, secured before the initiation. Because now, the initiation should have gotten to a specific, let's say, success rate in terms of implementation. Because what I understand is that this particular Ogono cleanup was a campaign, and that campaign came with a lot of, meeting with even the companies that do businesses there, the International Conservation, the United Nations Climate Change conferences and all that. There was a lot of campaign that went with it, and that basically gave it the attention that it seeked. And because a particular minister left and the other one went to become an emir, there should be a sustainable plan in terms of the actualization of that particular project. And that's basically why we think that it's getting too slow, because the human beings that live within these communities are being affected every day. And this problem has been since, I believe it's since when the first extraction was made, since the 70s. And for us to still be talking about it after close to 50 years, I think is not good on the people of the Ogoni land. And I think your organization or your agency has to, put more, emphasis on it. I just think that it's not fair enough for us to say we want environmental sustainability without us being accountable for the stages of neutralization that we are in. So I'm seeing another contribution. The delay is not due to one single factor, but the combination of bureaucracy, funding, consistency, community tension, ongoing pollution, technical difficulty, political challenges. Well, most times, when we are doing projects, there's what they call risk assessment. You need to understand, you need to have, envisage all these challenges. And before the initiation starts, you would have factored what if, this if factor, what if community tension. Why will a community have tension? Do we consult with them? Do we let them know the benefits to have on them? The ongoing pollution is because there is no deterrence to bad behavior. And that means that because our regulations or our laws are not being enforced, individuals, industries, and what have you can continue to do that particular form of what's it called, the pollution. So there must be something that we use to check, because what we're talking is about environmental sustainability. And this is meant to be a very, very intentional, engagement, or a very, very intentional approach towards environmental conservation. Then we have the technical difficulties. I believe that we have people that we consulted from the beginning. As we giving or us consulting someone or telling someone or being the owner of the project, we are meant to, engage them and let them understand that, oh, this will happen, this will happen. What is your strength? What is your weakness? What technology do you have for us? How soon? What is the milestone? When are we going to have this completed? How many years are we looking at for this to be completed? A project that you initiate and it's taking forever to complete is not environmental sustainability. And that's why it is most important for us to look at the environmental protection of that particular extraction. If it's not going to be something that you can address immediately, I think that based on Environmental Sustainability Act is not visible, is not good. Because now we need to protect, we need to use what we want to use now and also protect the future generation. So it has to be something we have to, look at and also try to, discuss when we engage most of the parties or stakeholders involved in this sector. So I say another contribution, it all boils down to the weak institution in Nigeria. That's why we are here. We are trying to increase or improve on our strengths. We know we are weak. So what do we do next? Why is it working abroad? Why is it working in South Africa, in Morocco, in Egypt? Why is it not working in Nigeria? Why is it not working in sub-Saharan Africa? Is the black color or the black skin? Are we having a problem? We need to tell ourselves the truth. If we don't tell ourselves the truth that we have a problem, I think environmental sustainability will just be an advocacy profession than even the impact is meant to be for it. So in such project, it's not supposed to depend on particular minister administrator. Exactly, that's what we're saying. So let's not, we'll get time for that. Maybe in the next, let me just round up in the next 15 minutes, then we can have the engagement among ourselves, because I want us to be interactive. So we have sustainability production system in Africa. Okay. So as we can see, we have sustainable agriculture. Most times, we have sustainable primary production, we have sustainable secondary production, and we have the sustainable tertiary production. But under the sustainable production system in Africa, we all know in sub-Saharan Africa, majority of our production deals with the primary production. Then under the primary production, what exactly do we even pay emphasis on? The emphasis most times is on, cultivation. And, based on our cultivation, so emphasis on soil health, we need to learn how to continue to retain the health benefit of our soil. That means that we can actually practice crop rotation on it, when the soil needs to be molded together, when it's meant to be separated, how do we do it? Then water efficiency, as I said, if our basin scheme was actually working, we'll have the irrigational services that would have helped us to have a continuous use of certain floodplain areas that can help us with sustainable production. Then we have the biodiversity. I know, especially even in Benue, they like bushmeat very well. Bushmeat has not helped sustainable environmental sustainability, because we understand the impact, the influence of fauna and fauna. We understand the effect of us removing one species of animal in a particular ecosystem and the impact it will have on that ecosystem. But what we do is that both adult to the pikin that the animal born will take it and bush as bush meat. And at the end of the day, we are not helping the biosphere because there's a balance. The world was a perfect place, or if not perfect, was close to perfect. There was this, there's this balance that came with the world. And what we do is that due to our own advancements or improvement in our technical abilities, in our human resource, we now started affecting the pattern or the trend of how the world was meant to work. And that's why we now see that we start witnessing or start having these issues with environmental balance. Because now you can imagine places that are meant to be developed, than our urban cities, are now witnessing one environmental hazard or the other. Is either flooding will come today, is either a hurricane will come tomorrow, is either you have wildfire that spread into the city. This as a result of the inability for us to understand that even when we advance on our needs, we need to understand that environmental protection is part of our core. And that's why I believe that we have the UN climate change conference now that helps us to see how the world will come together to have an holistic view and try to have some kind of regulation when it comes to practice. So now, as part of sustainable agriculture, practice can include crop rotation, organic farming, climate smart agriculture, reduced chemical input. We know when we put chemicals, it tends to have this acidic release that affects the alkalinity and the balance between the acidity and alkalinity of the soil. And which at the end of the day, we have leaching, we have capillary action, can even go as far as affecting that of our underground water. That is meant to be more of the process of water that you can just consume immediately. So the next stage of the primary production, we know that we do sustainable mining, extraction of this raw material from the soil, for beneath the soil. So minimizing environmental footprints will include us having proper waste management. We must manage the waste that we release from those mining sites. Land rehabilitation. We have to learn how to rehabilitate our land after mining. Then we have to see how we can have community participation, because a community is involved in its environment, that can now help you to see how they can monitor people that come to destroy or to affect the balance of the environment, because the community can help you to checkmate any form of enforcement of environmental laws, very important, and that's why we are here. Environmental laws, we are advocates of environmental laws, because we understand that the problem of man is not laws, but it's how to implement those laws. We've had brilliant ideas, papers every year, every time. And so there was a symposium yesterday, I believe papers were delivered, recommendations were made, but these recommendations, how is it being followed through? So all these things, we need to make sure that we have a way as practitioners, as professionals, to see how we can make people accountable for these environmental laws that is already been established but not being enforced. Okay, going to move to so we have sustainable secondary production, that's green industrialization. We'll see more of green industrialization in Africa, states, countries that actually, they have moved away from just fossil fuel and industrial parts to green industries. The one that have the circular flow, the one that has included environmental sustainability into it, the one that has friendliness of the environment into it. So all these things are basically what we are meant to be discussing as environmental sustainability professionals. We are meant to discuss on sustainability more. It's not just for us to build industries. It's not just for us to extract resources, but how sustainable is the new innovations, the new interventions to improving of our lives and having economic value. So under the sustainable secondary production, promotes value addition with minimal pollution. That is the motto. Green industry usually promotes value added and reduces pollution, mitigates pollution to the barest minimum. So uses of this, definitely we have renewable energy. Renewable energy, we have energy efficient technology, cleaner production method. So as we can see, example is given here. We have processing agricultural produce locally using solar power facilities. So now, because we want to produce or we want to have economic gains, we have to look inward and see what is the efficiency and the amount of a reduction in pollution that we can have in this new technology. So we as environmental sustainable advocates, as practitioners, when we want to analyze risks or identify potential disasters, we have to, be able to critically review all these parts. The technology that we're bringing upon, yes, is going to increase value, but how can we minimize or how can we reduce pollution or mitigate risks or disaster that can come with it, that can affect the human existence or even our environment? Then we have the sustainable tertiary production, which deals with the green services. All we have is environmental conservation deals with green services, and that's basically what we are. In short, another name for us is green, green professionals, because we want to make sure that the world continues to be green, because we understand green means health, especially when it comes to environmental sustainability or adaptation process. So we have the ecotourism, where we can increase that we start to advocate that we should not eat our wild animals for bush meat. We should not eat it because eating it basically affects the environment, if we like it or not. We should advocate that urban renewal should be the next thing. Most times we want to expand our cities. Then what we do is that we cut down trees, we expose more earth. Exposing more earth means that we have lesser environmental wellness or protection. So that means that what do we need to do is to see how we can integrate urban growth to, like now, what we have in most of the Asian countries, that you see them building vertically. They are not spreading, they are building up. Us, we are spreading. And spreading means that more radiation, more skin cancer, more unhealthy living, more exposure. And what does that means that we'll just, we're drawing just for the few, but not for everyone. And majority of Africans are very poor people. So we have green transportation, the one that deals with solar, the one that deals with EVs and all that. Then we have environmental consultancy and service. That's what we can do. We can advocate, we can actually help them to bring to life most of these green initiative that can help promote the standard of living. So I think I still have like 5 minutes before we can now open the floor for everybody to speak or to So am I communicating? Am I communication in place?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, thank you. So, as I said, we have agricultural, mineral, energy resources classification and management system that was already, be like a framework that Africa mineral and energy resource should operate upon. And in this particular classification, we have them say that African mineral and energy resource classification and management system is a continental system for management of African minerals and energy resource. The initiative is based on United Nations Framework Classification for Resources principle, generic specification and guideline, and is allied to African mining vision because Africa has a mining vision. Africa is only like has so many potential, but just contribute to less than 4% of the total, trade, um, global trade, and that shows that we are really backward. In short, as we move forward, we'll be able to see the 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 contribution of each continent and how Africa just falls under others. We are not even regarded as a continent that is big. They just classified us under others. We are just others. It's very, very pathetic. But we have to plan the environmental sustainability together. Some people have eaten and they have cleaned their mouths, and all of us have to plan together. And that's where we are as a continent. And this sustainable development goal and the agenda 2063, adapting to national and local needs, the initiative provides the specification and guideline required for sustainable development of mineral and energy resources. So that particular African mining vision, this deals with resources that are mined, was adopted by the Africa Head of States, African states and governments in 2009. You can see as far back as 2009, with a long-term goal of transparent, equitable, and optimal exploitation of African mineral resources to underpin broad-based sustainable growth and social economic development. More specific action plan aim to improve geological and mineral information system to contribute to a broad-based and inclusive growth, as well as social economic structural transformation of African economy and envisioned by the Agenda 2063. So we've gone, I think this is more like a quarter is already gone in terms of this plan. I don't know how Nigeria has fit into it, but I understand that most Eastern or Southern countries already have a workable plan that they are using for their mining. And that's why you see that they are very active when it comes to diamond, gold, and other mineral materials that actually hand them a lot of return. But in Nigeria, I think the Minister of Mineral Resources tried to do one or two and all that, but the fire was burning at that time. But this time, he's not among the most performing ministers. I stand to be corrected. The mineral resources are defined in solid, liquid, and gas resources. At the heart of the AMV is the development and harmonization of strategy, policy, legal, and regulatory framework, instruments, and practice for the greater participation of African countries in regional and global mineral value chain. The AMV therefore aim to integrate Africa energy and mineral resources sectors into its broader social economic development processes and thereby addressing the persistent poverty and underdevelopment. The development of this initiative will therefore ensure the harmonized continental-wide resource management system based on the principle of the United Nations Framework Classification for Resources and integrating international best practices tailored for inclusive and sustainable development for Africa. So what we have here is that, they came together in 2009 to make sure that they have this holistic view and a collective, will I say, uh, a collective harmonized strategy that can help them to even pitch their case better. Because what we have is that most of our resources, we actually export them raw, reducing the value that we can get it from it. So we have resources, but the value chain is abysmal. For Africa to account for just less than 4% of the global trade in manufacturing, in resources, it's appalling for Africa. So they came with this framework, but has the framework been able to help us? I don't think so, because we are still, total merchandise trade in Africa is still around 1.4 to 1.5 trillion dollars annually, which is insignificant to the global trade. So this initiative, I believe, this is an Africa initiative, an homegrown solution aligned with the international standard through the United Nations Framework Classification, but designed to respond to what Africa needs in order to achieve the aspiration of goals of the Agenda 2063 and the AU vision for integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force for global arena. So let me just finish this one, then maybe I will open the class for contribution, comments, and what have you. So why the African Mineral Resource Energy Classification? So Africa is a well-endowed, we all know that Africa is like the most richest continent, and we are everybody's bride. But how can we do shakara? That's what matters now. With the natural resources and the major source of oil, gas, and solid mineral resources, we can see even when it comes to the green energy or green mining or green resource, we have abundance in Africa. And that's why you see people like China, Russia, America, even France, still looking into Africa and trying to have their own share. But now, the world has changed. Africa is trying to be united, but how united is what remains the mystery. So moving forward, resources, and yet no country in Africa has a comprehensive mineral and energy resource management system. Appalling. Further, no country in Africa, except South Africa, has the standard code for reporting mineral and energy resources to stock exchanges and financial institutions. Africa has little knowledge of its natural resources, wealth, and endowments. This means that most African countries with their vast natural resources endowments are left to Africa. Often the social and environmental cost of raw material production are burdened on Africa, while its value addition and downstream beneficiation happen elsewhere with little or no job creation in Africa for growing African youth population who are now trying to cross the desert and ocean to find job elsewhere. So that's the irony of Africa. I think we can stop here, then we'll continue in the afternoon. I think we have 1 hour for afternoon. So thank you. I want us to identify and even contribute to the class. You can raise up your hand so we can have you speak. Any contribution? Ajoko, please speak.
Ajoko Philemon, unmute your mic, please.
Okay, yes, please moderate it. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for the impactful lecture, sir. Mine is a contribution. Sir, we've been talking about sustainable management of resources, the trade, and we've been looking at other factors. There's an important factor I want also to look at it, which is human population. Our population is increasing, which is actually a variable factor. We are not taking into cognizance the increase in population, and there's little or no awareness as to how people raise children. I'm afraid if we put in all the effort, we do all the advocacy, and yet we neglect the aspect of increase in population, our effort will yield little or no effect. I think we should include a reduction in family size, the number of children, and all of that, so that as we use our resources efficiently, we manage our resources very well, it will go around. But if we are managing our resources very well, but the size of the population keep increasing, we will find it very difficult to keep the policies in check. Even when we are implementing them, it will be difficult for us to achieve the common goal or the aim that we want to achieve. Thank you, sir. That's my little contribution.
Thank you. I think it's well noted because human resource is also a resource, and then the mindset of the human, the value, the foxtail, it actually sits on sustainability. And if we don't put in effort to actually, call as in if we don't put in effort to construct positivity into them, and I think we've not even started at all. So I think we have Abida.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. You just kind of, I wanted to object with my colleague Philemon Ajoku on the issue of family size. And you just said it, though, human resource is also a resource. Humans are also resources. So saying to cut down the family size may not be sustainable enough for future practices. You can look at other countries now, even who tried to do that in the past, countries like China. Seriously trying to grow their population back, and there are also European countries who are trying to grow their population back because they are running short of human resources. So I was just trying to object with Philemon Ajoku, and then we can look at other means that are very much sustainable instead of cutting family size. And like you rightfully said, educating and putting the size in order also goes a long way. So thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we have Julius with his hand. Please, you can go ahead.
All right. Good morning, sir. And thank you for the wonderful lectures. And good morning, dear colleagues. Well, mine is a contribution from YAMREC. That's this very pitch that we're seeing now. I would like to say that our government have really failed woefully when it comes to African natural resources. Any resource that has to be mined in African countries, like maybe Nigeria, to say. Because the truth is that the conflict around the globe, or let's say the conflict around the globe is centered around natural resources, with Africa being a key spot area, right? Because conflict now, if you check, you draft, you check, you go into research, you see that they are either related to a resource, maybe land resource, maybe fauna, flora, or things like that. That could be that is very, very severe, just like the case of the Ogoni land, right? So now you see that you said something, sir, that yes, Africa is endowed and is blessed with these resources, but then coming together, you understand, as a synergy to see how we control these resources has been the mystery today, which is really true. You'll find out that our government, who are supposed to be in charge of coordinating all these things, you understand, like it is your it is your territory, it is your country. What are you supposed to do if they are coming toward mine, if they are coming to like a nest from your place and take it to their place? Or maybe to like sell in the global market, what are you to do that's to make sure you inculcate both sustainable way of them doing it, you understand, and then how it will not bring any harm to your environment and to your people, and most especially how your people benefit from the results of their harnessing of that natural resources. You see that the government are themselves accomplice to the things that happen to us. There is unsustainable mining happening in your country, and then you cannot do anything about it. Just like the recent case of the Jos mining, right? The accident that happened in the Jos mining that claimed the lives of people, and we have several mining locations like that with similar cases and situations. Say, for example, you are coming from Kaduna and you want to go to Abuja. There is this industry that is by the road, one mining steel industry that is by the road. You can see the way they flare. They will come to your country. They are flaring their gases. You understand, those toxic gases that could hamper the lives of humans and animals and even plants around, close to the road. Companies sited close to a road that people pass by, and then to a settlement where people are surrounding that place. It's not healthy. Like, it is not. But still, what are the government doing? You will see that they are partakers of the cut of the benefit that is coming there, such that when people take alarm to them that is what is happening, they will cite those papers, burn it, shovel it in the carpet, and nothing will be done about it. And people will be suffering because the government are themselves accomplices. They are after the economic gain, that's the money, rather than the lives of their humans. You can't do that in China. You cannot set company policy like that. You drop it and you're gaining and people are suffering in China. You cannot do that in India or anywhere. You can't. There must be robust EIA and EIS that is going on for you to be able to do that, but not in Nigeria. So I think our government have really failed woefully when it comes to the aspect of that. And then the only thing is that once the government tends to correct themselves and stick to the people, regardless of whether population of Nigeria is growing or not, Nigerians still have the resource to have to cater for every Nigerian that is growing in all its entirety, beginning from whether Abia State down to this. It has the resource, it is in abundance, but then the means of controlling and allocations of this resource is what has been the problem. So if only the government can stick and change their corruption and what they are doing, you understand, and the corruptions that they have set even some Nigerians to partake in doing it because of they are the ones at power, I think Nigeria will come back to its initial glory. Else it's going to be difficult. It will still bounce back to just South Africans, and South Africans, of course, they have the mix of white there. White will not allow its environment to be so dirty, and then it will just keep quiet. But that is just it, sir. Thank you for that.
Thank you for your passionate and it's really, you really study hard and see how we are our own problem. And it still boils down to us saying that the human resource, both the youth, the young, the elderly and all that, if the mindset is not changed, if we don't see ourselves as, being environmental sustainable advocate ourselves, we might not look for the quality of life will continue to reduce, because now what we are talking about is environmental protection. And for you to protect yourself and for you to have the quality of life that you seek or the livelihood that you want, you need to, juxtapose your economic gain to your environment as well. And once there's a balance between what you gain or what you have with what your technology that you've used to improve yourself, if there's no benefit, like now, the life expectancy rate has really dropped. In Africa, in Nigeria to be precise, I think it's less than 60. You get to 60, you get different form of ailments. This as a result of, the way the world has really shaped itself. And I think that's why even the mining, we've not even gotten to our potential yet, but at the same time, we can still see these abnormalities happening. And we need to improve on our mode of operations. They already have this since 2009, which is a very laudable one, endorsed by the United Nations Framework Classification, which means that we need to look inward and also see how we can bring it into practice. So I see I have another person raising his hand. Tachi, please go ahead.
Hello, good morning, Doc. Thank you so much for the lectures. I would like to say a little, and then maybe my question will follow. You spoke about mining in our country, Nigeria, under the primary category, I think, where it is only being extracted, if I got that right. And I would like to ask that even at that level in our country, Nigeria, is Nigerian is Nigeria actually benefiting anything even from that aspect? I asked that question because I don't know much about GDP. I think its contribution to the GDP of Nigeria, but I think it is very, very minimal, if not really minute. So my question basically is Nigeria even benefiting in any way at all? I'm referring to Nigeria as a country now, benefiting anywhere at all from the mining activities that are carried out in this country at all? Thank you.
Okay, so I think we see another hand being raised. We say another, please ask your question because we have short time, so we can answer it together.
Okay, I think based on the discussion we had, especially anything that have to do with mineral in Nigeria, I think the major challenge for me is the Nigerian constitution, whereby everything about the mineral sector is put under the federal government, and the state doesn't have influence over it. And there are so many lacunas and bridges that are being abused when it comes to mining of mineral at the affairs of under the federal government. I think if the law can be amended so that state can also have certain influence to control or to manipulate some of the issues that are being raised, just like the security issues that we have in Nigeria, that everything that have to do with the security is under federal government. But at the same time, if you go to the states, the hands of the states are tight in controlling most of the abuses happening in the security cycle and then even in the mining sector. So I think we need to focus more on the legislative aspects. I think that's my take, sir.
Okay, yeah, so I think, thank you very much. I think it's well, I think the mining sector, direct contribution to Nigeria's GDP is less than 1%. Is in short, it accounts for 0.5 to 0.8 of our GDP. That's appalling. Very, very appalling. And that means that we've not really scratched, but the little that we are seeing is that the EIA or the environmental impact assessment with environmental protection is not even done properly. So that means that even in as much that we've not started reaping from it, eventually if the Minister of Solid Mineral gets his act right and we want to start reaping for it, we should now make sure that we use this framework that is already being proposed. And we already have a code that we can actually use to check the transparency and the accountability of these miners. In short, what we are having is that we're having more illegal miners than the legal miners. So it's not that money is not being generated from mining in Nigeria, but money is not being accounted for mined in Nigeria. And that's where we are as a country. So I think this is the end of this morning class. Then we'll definitely converge at 1. So class rep.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Thank you very much, sir, for today's wonderful lecture.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir. It has been an impactful lecture. Take care. Flowers.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your lecture.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. It's been a
God bless
nice
you
lecture.
greatly.
Thank you
God
very
bless
much,
you.
class.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
Thank
day,
you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, guys. See you by 1.
All right,
All
sir.
right, sir.
Bye.
All right.